Hijri, or the Muslim calendar, and it is also January the 30th, 2021. We open with the traditional greetings, the Muslim greetings that we extend to all of the Muslims and our non-Muslim listening audience of Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be upon you. And we said all the praise belongs to Allah, therefore we praise Him, we seek His help, and we seek His forgiveness. We also seek help, or we also seek refuge with Almighty God Allah from those evil deeds or those suggestions that come from within our very own selves or our very own souls. Let it know, whomever Allah guides, no man can misguide. And whomever Allah permits to go astray, no man can guide. And then we close with the Kalima Shahadatain, which is said by every Muslim at least 5 times a day during his prayerful life, that I bear witness and give open testimony that there is no deity, nothing worthy of worship except Almighty God Allah. He is alone without associate or partner. And I bear witness that Muhammad ibn Abdullah, from whom the Quran was revealed over 1440 years ago, is his slave servant and final messenger. Alhamdulillah. Like I said in the beginning of the program, today is the 17th of Jumada al-Akhirah, 1442, on what we call the Hijri, or the Muslim calendar, and it is also Saturday, January the 30th, 2021, on the Christian or Gregorian calendar. And in Philadelphia, where I am located, it is a balmy 20 degrees outside, alhamdulillah, but it is sunny and beautiful. Today we have a very special guest for us today. We're talking about the psychosis of white nationalism, racism, and hatred, how that impacts people, how it impacts the community. And my guest is none other than the illustrious Dr. Malik Rahim, who received his PhD as a counselor in education and supervision from Northern Illinois University, his MA in community counseling from Chicago State University. He's a lecturer and school counselor in clinical mental health. Dr. Rahim's research interests include racial microaggressions and racial battle fatigue, impact racism and white supremacy. He is a counselor of education, a counselor in cultural diversity, and increasing multicultural understanding in counseling and education. He's also studies the psychological impact of intimate partner relationships in the African diaspora, contemporary issues of mental health issues of people of African descent in the African diaspora, mental health issues of Muslims, and a sense of belonging with students of color. Dr. Rahim is a lecturer for the Leadership and Professional Studies Department at Seattle University, teaching graduate counseling courses in clinical and mental health counseling, master's program. He earned his Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and a Master's in Arts, as we said, in Chicago State University, and an ED in Counselor Education from supervision in Northern Illinois University. Dr. Rahim is a national certified counselor, approved clinical supervisor, and a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Illinois. No, without any further delay, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Rahim.
Oh, wa alaikum salam. How are you?
You got more accolades and titles behind your name than Obama.
I don't know about that. As you were reading it, I was like, dang, this brother sounds deep. I want to sit down and listen to him. Then you said it was me. I'm like, oh, okay. No, I hope somebody will want to listen to me. Thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you for agreeing to be a part of our show. I know this subject is something that's really near and dear to your heart. It's something that we've been discussing, you and I, and you've been doing a pretty good lecture circuit on it. And let me go over it again. It's called The Psychosis of Racism, Supporting Racism, Hatred, and White Supremacy, and sometimes not even knowing it. So now that we've got all of the professional biography and the background out of the way, can you explain these terms to our listening audience, because they kind of multisyllabic? I mean, they kind of lengthy. The one is racial microaggressions, racial battle fatigue, and the impact of racism and white supremacy. So if you could unpack those, starting with racial microaggressions. What is that?
Well, first of all, microaggression can come in many kind of forms, okay? But the one I usually focus most on is racial. And racial microaggressions are basically commonplace verbal or behavioral indignities. They're sometimes intentional, but a lot of times they're unintentional, and they communicate a hostile or derogatory or negative racial slight, okay? And they communicate insults as well. Mm-hmm. And there are basically 3 types of microaggressions, and then there's a macroaggression, okay? The 3 types of microaggressions are micro insults, and they're usually unconscious. The micro assault is usually conscious, and micro invalidations. And then, of course, you have the macro level, which are environmental. So it's like that is like what's happening in Flint, Michigan, or what's happening just about in any urban community when it comes to the dumping of toxic waste or lead in the water, lead paint in the past, those type of things where it was concentrated in racial insults and assaults that are on a systemic level. Okay. Mm-hmm. The micro assaults are the old-fashioned type of racism where they'll call you I don't want to use the airway, but
boy.
Well, yeah, boy.
Boy.
I was thinking more like the more derogatory term of the with the not with the A but the ER at the end. Okay. And those is like you pretty much know without a shadow of doubt their intentions and what they feel about you. I'm sorry?
Is that a macro or a micro?
That's a micro. That's the assault. Those are conscious. They're overt. Okay. The micro invalidations of insults and invalidations are unconscious and they're covert. Okay. Those are more in the sense of making you feel like you're an alien in your own land, like, where are you from? Mm-hmm. Making it to where it's like, oh, as a black person, you speak so well. Mm-hmm. Associating criminology with your race. Believing in the myth of meritocracy, pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. Why can't you people do that? Those types of things, putting ascription on a person's intelligence because of their race, like all Asians can do math so well, or because you're black, you're not supposed. Why are you trying to act white by going to school and doing these types of things? Or when you are in a program, they'll, like I said earlier, they'll say you speak so well, or they'll do things to kind of manipulate the stack of cards against you. Like if you get into a college, they'll say, "Oh, well, the only reason you got there is because you're black," or "The only reason you got there is because you're Latino." Right. Mm-hmm. And instead of they ascribe your intelligence because you're race, so you can't be as intelligent as a white.
Tell us, what is racial battle fatigue?
Racial battle fatigue is like an accumulation of microaggressions. Mm-hmm. And after a while, after you accumulate these microaggressions, it's very similar to the concept of PTSD, where you have a psychological stress of responsible frustration, anger, exhaustion, physical avoidance, maybe even psychological withdrawal, Sometimes you even accept racial stereotypes like imposter syndrome. You verbally or non-verbally fight back. And that's usually every time you get up, you know that you're about to do
you can become complacent when you're over inundated with racism.
Right. Right.
I'm tired of all this marching.
I'm tired of all this stuff.
I've seen enough black people get killed on TV.
That's racial trauma, yes. And the thing about racial battle fatigue is, it's like, you know, you're about to go to war every single time you're about to go into a certain space.
Okay. Now, the impact of racism and white supremacy, how does that affect us as a people?
It's just like I said, as far as battle fatigue, it creates as a people, it creates a overarching trauma. It creates frustrations, anger, exhaustion. You sometimes check out and have physical avoidance. It gets to the point to where you're in a point to where you can easily become physically sick by it. So it's like you internalize all the trauma that is going on. So once you start internalizing all the trauma that's going on, it just really kind of impacts you in different ways. Create anger, create frustration, create a sense of hopelessness. It can create a sense of wanting to fight back. It can create a sense of giving up. And it can create a sense of you always are going through these types of things.
Now tell me, what are the different categories of people who suffer from racism? I mean, obviously, white people cannot, in the long run, be benefiting from racism. So who suffers, and then who suffers the most from racism?
Well, I think everyone suffers from racism in some shape or form, okay? Even the person who is perpetrating of racism is suffering from it because of the fact they have to actually live up to a particular standard, and it can be traumatizing to them too. The person who's the oppressed, the victim, what happens to them, and I know some people don't like the word victim because they think it's a victim mentality, but the person who is being a targeted group or the individual of racism, the impact it has on them and is it creates a self-hatred type of thing. You can look at internalized racism in some of the violence, some of the failed relationships that we have, the blaming ourselves as far as oppressed people. So it's like those types of things. When you don't see a value in yourself and people like you, you don't value their life or their contributions. So it's a lot easier for you to do harm to them. It's a lot easier for you to attack them. It's a lot easier for you to belittle them because on the spectrum of humanity, the darker you are, the less humanized you become, especially in the media.
So let me ask this. How are people unknowingly complicit in supporting racism, hate, and white supremacy? And can that impact both, as you say, for lack of a better term, the victim and the perpetrator? Can they both be complicit and not know it?
That's a tough question. Okay. Yes and no. It depends. Okay.
I just got since it's a such question, tough question. I just got a notice from the producer that we're going to go to a break. So we're going to give you a small reprieve to reflect and think on the question. Let me reiterate the question. And the question is, how are people unknowingly complicit in supporting racism, hate, and white supremacy? Because I think that's one of the points that you make in your lectures, is that you can be a racist and you can support racism and not even know that you're supporting it. You're listening to Living Islam Today on WURDradio.com. 900 AM, 96.1 FM, on Facebook at onWURD, FORWURD, and the call-in, be a part of the conversation at 215-634-8065. I'm your host, Qasim Rashad, and our guest today is Dr. Malik Rahim. You're listening to Living Islam Today. Assalamu alaikum. We're going to a break.
Nearly 26% of Philadelphia's population lived below the poverty line in 2017. There's an increasing share of residents struggling to cover the most fundamental necessities. On a national level, Philadelphia was among the highest with poverty rates. Muslim Serve's mission is to develop and implement programs addressing food insecurity in collaboration with local community partners. Fundamentally, Muslim Serve strives to uplift those in our community by providing free, hot, nutritious meals. This is done by partnering with a variety of local community organizations and establishments with the goal to bring comfort to those in need and to relieve hunger in our area, no matter who they are. Veterans, students, people with disabilities, single parents, senior citizens, working class families, and children. Muslim Serve can be reached by phone at 833-486-4370 or by email at info@muslimserve.org. Learn more about Muslim Serve and what they do on their website, muslimserve.org, and on their social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Muslim Serve.
Khadija Alderman's Funeral Service Incorporated. Don't let your family bear the burden of your final arrangements. Pre-arrange now.
We specialize in janaza services, traditional Christian services, natural burials, and theme services.
We provide repast, domestic and international shipping, webcasting, and Skyping.
We service all denominations.
Our new location, 1924 West Hunting Park Avenue, Philadelphia 19140, 215-225-6600. Visit us at www.khadijasfuneralservice.com. That's www.khadijasfuneralsvc.com.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Khadija Alderman's Funeral Service, serving humanity with dignity.
You're listening to Living Islam Today, an Ahmed Media Company project on WURD Radio, 900 AM and 96.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Living Islam Today on WURradio.com, 900 AM and 96.1 FM on your radio dial if you're in the Philadelphia area. We're also on Facebook at onWURD, FORWURD, on Facebook, and you can become a part of the conversation by calling 215-634-8065. And we had a question for Dr. Malik, and my guest today is Dr. Malik Rahim, and we're talking about racism, the psychosis of racism, supporting racism, hatred, and white supremacy, and not even knowing it. And that's a critical question that we have for him, but we're going to go to Brother Joe on line 1 in Germantown, and then come back to our question. Brother Joe.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Rashad and Dr. Rahim, and to your wonderful producer, Brother Mike. How y'all brothers doing today?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Praise be to Allah. I just want to say this, Dr. Rahim and Brother Rashad. You know, Dr. King said it best several years ago. He said that white folks, he said not the actions and the words of white racists or white supremacists that's the problem. He said, which is a problem, but he was saying, he says more of a problem is when white folks that claim they don't feel that way remain silent. You know, he said, our so-called white allies silence on these issues. He said, that's the problem. And you take, for example, now, a good example with this white woman. I mean, she's just one of many. That Marjorie Greene was made outlandish comments, has advocated violence against members of Congress. She has made so-called anti-Semitic statements, and you don't hear not one word from white Republicans. You don't hear one word from white members of the Jewish community. They remain silent while this woman just saying all kinds and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So a lot of this, when white folks remain silent, to me, that's one of the issues that and even with police brutality, and I close with this, Brother Rashad and Dr. Rahim. Like, for example, you always hear white police officers say they had to kill an unarmed black man because he feared for his life. But they just showed on TV, on Reverend Sharpton's show, the white mobs up in the Capitol was beating white cops with sticks and baseball bats and God knows what else, and they sitting there not doing anything. But yet they kill an unarmed black man saying they was in fear for their life. You know, I mean, this is outrageous, man. So until white folks come to the reality of their racism and denial, this stuff is going to continue to happen over and over again. And I just thank y'all brothers for letting me express myself. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, brother. Brother Joe kind of touched base on what we've been talking about as well. And that's the question, how are people unknowingly complicit in supporting racism and hate and white supremacy? And obviously silence is definitely one aspect of it. But when we see black celebrities like Candace Owens and Kanye West supporting Trump, the right, the far right, and Republicans, is that another means by which black people, when they ally themselves with white nationalists on some other agenda, be it economics or some plan that they're trying to put forth, is that another way in which blacks are, I guess, unknowingly to themselves complicit?
Right. Let me go back to the other question you asked before the break first.
Okay.
About people unknowingly being complicit in supporting racism, hate, and white supremacy. And the brother who called kind of touched on that.
Brother Joe.
Right. The thing is that, okay, one of the issues is how do the person define racism? And a lot of times to protect their ego, right? A person who might be supporting racist things protects their ego because they define racism as the KKK, the neo-Nazis, these white supremacist terrorists, support groups like the Proud Boys and so forth and so on, right? And these militia groups. So they say, well, if I'm not in that, I'm not racist. But I do believe that affirmative action is wrong. I do believe that black people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I do believe that the wall needs to be built to keep out Mexicans and people from Central America. So since they define racism as these overt symbols, and they're not supporting those overt symbols, they think that they are not racist. Okay? It also depends on where they are developmentally as far as their racial identity congruency, okay? Because it runs on a spectrum. Okay? And that includes the oppressed groups, whether you're Latino, Asian, Black, Indigenous. It's that support. So I'm just getting kind of into the second question you asked about Candace Owens and Kanye West, right? First, you have to verify that people like Candace Owens and Kanye West are not doing this for their own benefit, because there's a lot of money available to sell out black people, your own kind, right? In 1710 in Virginia, there was this law called the Meritorious Manumission Act. And part of that was that they will free an African if they saved the life of a white person, or they told on other black people who was talking about having an insurrection or to try to escape, right? So much so that the laws were that black people couldn't congregate together in slavery because without a white person being there, because they was in fear of the fact that they would be planning something, okay? So now when you look at laws now on the books of loitering and stuff like that, those are kind of built off of racist policies, right? So who are usually do the police enforce those policies against? People that are of color, black and brown, right? Now, when you look at what he said about the police officers shooting people, the police officer in their mind might not think that they are racist, because of the fact that they didn't protect their ego. They had a defense mechanism. A racist person wear Klan hoods. A racist person has swastikas. A racist person does this. And even the person who walks around with the Confederate flag, they're protecting their ego by saying, well, this is about our heritage. This is not about racism. This is about our heritage. So they use the defense mechanism of denial, of deflection, of reaction formation, of these type of defense mechanisms they use to try to protect their ego, to where they won't come into the realization that, yes, my brother, you too are letting your racism show, right? So that's some of the things that they'll do to defend themselves from that.
This is so deep. I should have told my guests to bring pad and paper. I feel like I'm going to get three college credits after this radio show. I mean, you are really dropping some jewels here. I've got, and what was that? I wrote it down, racial identity congruency. Man, that's a deep term. And the Meritorious Manumission Act, which kind of encouraged the traitors.
Right. It encouraged enslaved Africans to turn on each other, to support white supremacy, to take the white slave master. So that's why a lot of the insurrections in North America failed, because
Nat Turner got snitched on. Harriet Tubman got snitched on. Marcus Vesey got snitched on. And these are the insurrections that are well known and historically documented.
Right.
So we got another call. We got another call.
Let me say this real quick before the caller come on. Probably the most potential biggest was Denmark Vesey, because Denmark Vesey.
That's right. I said Marcus. Sorry.
Marcus Garvey was told on him, and what happened with Marcus. Even though it wasn't an insurrection, a lot of black people turned on him. Even the great Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois turned on him because of the fact he was saying things that they didn't like. And then one of the things that some other people didn't like about Marcus Garvey was because he had true African features, right? Short, stocky man with dark skin, a big nose, a brother from the West Indies, and very, very unapologetic. So like the thing about it is what they call the black bourgeoisie, they didn't like that because he was talking to a common man, right?
Okay.
So I'm sorry. I don't want to control your show. Go ahead to your caller.
Oh, no, because you
give me a lecture mode.
You touched on the subject of colorism and racism and so we're going to get back to that. I just want to encourage our guests to participate and encourage our guests to continue to call in, because that's how we move this show. Okay, they tell me I'm cutting my head off, so I got to sit back. Well, we got Brother Jacob, Labake Jake is what we call him. Line 2, Labake Jake, Salaam Alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah to you, Brother Rashad. And who's that, Brother Dr. Rahim?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum to you. Yes, Brother Doctor. In a way, I might be seeing this thing wrong, but I even look at the whole thing as bigger than just white and black. I see it as a thing where it's man's inhumanity to man. I mean, because Allah says in the Quran that he created every son of Adam honorable and noble. See, that's equal, right? And I don't believe in another creator. I don't believe that anybody anywhere else other than Allah creates man, okay? I'll put it like that. So that's something we do to ourselves. I mean, and I see it in other cultures. I've even seen it in Saudi, where it seems like the lighter you are, the better you do, right? We see it in Africa, all over the world. Then it's the rich over the poor, that inequality there. I know it's always going to be poor people, but you see what I'm saying about this? I know in America here now, we're dealing with the white so-called supremacist people. We know we're dealing with that here. But could it be like even if you ain't white or black, that there's prejudices that the human being hold on to that's not from Allah, is what I'm trying to say. I might be wrong. I'm going to hang up and listen, my brothers. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I agree. I can't disagree with what he's saying. The thing is, race is a social construct, and it was created to protect the ego of our white. You hate to keep using the word white, but the enslaved masters, the enslavers, the colonizers. It was created to justify their need for enslaved people, right? So when they created race, they also created a system to make sure that they were on top. So the thing is, he's exactly right. Race is a social construct, and by race being a social construct, race in actuality don't exist. Unfortunately, racism does, okay? Now, he's absolutely right that God, Allah Almighty, is the creator of all things. So therefore, when he created mankind, humans, is like, the thing is, he created us with this beautiful spectrum of not to hate each other, but to know each other, right? So he's exactly right. I'm not an Islamic scholar by no means. Brother Qasim, you know way more than I do when it comes to Islam. But it's like on this topic, it's like, while he's absolutely right, he's still verifying what I was saying about racism and colorism and the spectrum of human beings, how the darker complected you are, the more you're treated as inhuman. And the thing is,
in racism.
Right. And usually the colorism is our attack, the oppressed people attack on our other oppressed people, right? And it's built off of the whole systemic system of white supremacy. Even when you look, I'm gonna step on some toes, but even when you look at the history of the Divine Nine, it's like you had the brown paper bag test, right? And even with HBCUs, when you apply to get into a HBCU, you had to send in a photograph so they can make sure that you was proper stock, right?
You know, I know all about that.
I know you know all about it.
The first group of the alphas and the AKAs were the light bourgeoisie, and the other ones that followed were the people who came from farming families and sharecroppers, and they needed to find a way in which to express themselves in that system.
Now, I'm not trying to step on the brothers and sisters. No, I'm saying that, right?
I think I just did.
You're part of the Divine Nine, so it's okay for you to talk about it. But since I'm not, I have a lot of sisters that I love that are deltas. I don't have that many. I have a few sisters I love as AKA. It seems like I meet a whole bunch of deltas, right? But I have a whole bunch of deltas I love. I have family members who are zetas. I have family members who are AKAs. I have family members who are Kappas. I have a brother sitting right here that I love and adore that's an Omega. I have a couple other brothers I know that are Omegas. So I love you all, right? But unfortunately, the history is initially
a collegiate caste. Well, the brother talked about Quran and history, you know, and in the Quran, several scholars have alluded to the point or the fact that Shaitan, they say, is the first racist. Because remember, he said, he told Allah, when Allah was telling Shaitan or Iblis to bow down to Adam, Shaitan says, I'm not bowing down to him. You created me from fire, from light. You created him from mud, dirt, brown, dark. And that's where some scholars or some people allude to the beginning of the colorism and racism. I don't know if you want to expound on that, but I thought since the brother brought that up, that we could at least highlight that.
Like I said, I'm not an Islamic scholar, but you're exactly right. And that's one of the foundations of racism. I'm better than you, right? That's one foundation. So just like you said with Shaitan, Iblis saying, I'm better than you, kind of created that. And it kind of filters over, unfortunately, into the heart of
and
so
then
many.
Use his description to establish why he was.
Right.
in a comparison.
Right. And so it's like when you look at the creation of man-made racism, the social construct of race, the thing is like you look at the history and you see how it's like once they created that the sister wrote and they started that 1619 project. The counter verse was the 1776 project. So the 1776 project,
Okay.
back a bit on topic, the 1776 project was what they call true alternate scholars who feel that the 1619 project is distorted history of America. So many other scholars in the 1776 project are black scholars of African descent that's trying to say, well, while we know racism exists, all this talk about enslaved people coming here, and that was the reason that they came here, and that we need to focus on that, is destroying the possible, is causing a divide. So what they're doing is they're trying to rewrite and show how, in essence, as black people, we are the masters of our own destruction. Right?
So do you feel that this is one of the symptoms of the rise of white nationalism and racism? Because it seems in the history of America, at least as a colonizer and a colony, that racism has ebbed and flowed, probably more so post-civil rights era, when we supposedly arrived, and you see the dumbing down, and it's no longer fashionable or in vogue to be a racist. So the racists put on their sheets or they went into the closet. So
put on police uniforms.
Exactly. So what do you attribute to the rise of white nationalism and racism over the, I mean, it is hit a pitch fever high, but obviously Trump saw that it was marketable and saw that it was something that white folk wanted, and he just nuclear blew it up.
Right. Well, I think it was always there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was always there. I think as a society, as a whole, we ignored it. Okay? I think that's one of the big problems. It was always there. I think as a society, we ignored it. But I think if I had to put my finger on one event that probably brung it out of the shadows, it was the election of Barack Obama. The election of, see, the thing is that a covert racist, they don't know that they are truly racist. Well, let me rephrase that. Everyone is prejudiced, right? We all have implicit biases because of what's been beaten to us in this society. A person, you don't realize how it's impacting you because you'll say, well, no. I don't hate, you know what I'm saying? I don't have issues with black women. I don't have no issues with black women until a black woman becomes your supervisor, right? I don't have any issues with somebody who's African American or African descent until they become your supervisor. So once Barack Obama became
or they marry your daughter.
Right. Once Barack Obama became the leader of the free world, right? And you absolutely right, marry your daughter. That's a whole different conversation, but in the same context. But once Barack Obama became the president of the United States, the supposed leader of the free world, supposedly the most powerful man on the planet. That's when you start
on the Gantt chart. That's where you start the rise.
That's when you pour gasoline on a smoldering fire and it exploded. And so the thing about it is, it was called the Tea Party movement. And if you went there, you saw all racist tropes that was there. Now the issue came is that our scholars that were coming on TV tried to explain it all as these people are upset because of economics, not because of race. But just about anybody from the street, the hood, the middle class black person, the middle class you know, the middle class indigenous person, the poor person. We were looking at that and said, y'all crazy. They not upset about economics. Why are they having these edijays of holding up Barack Obama like he's being hung? Why they make these pictures of Michelle Obama into an 8? Right. It was like the thing about it, even when
the condemnation of them wearing the tan suit.
The tan suit. When you had the sister. That's not presidential. You had the sisters from Rutgers who went to the Final Four, and I want to say they won. And the radio host said that they're
happy-headed old.
Okay, well you said that. I didn't say it. But
I'm the violation, Mike.
But
look, we gotta go to a break.
Okay.
This is our second final break. And when we come back, we're gonna let you rock and roll. You're listening to Islam Today on WRDRadio.com, 900 AM and 96.1 FM in Philadelphia, and on Facebook at onWURD WRD. And you can call in at 215-634-8065. I'm your host, Qasim Rashad. He's my guest, Dr. Malik Rahim, and we're talking about the psychosis of racism in America. Assalamu alaikum. We'll be right back.
Nearly 26% of Philadelphia's population lived below the poverty line in 2017. There's an increasing share of residents struggling to cover the most fundamental necessities. On a national level, Philadelphia was among the highest with poverty rates. Muslim Serve's mission is to develop and implement programs addressing food insecurity in collaboration with local community partners. Fundamentally, Muslim Serve strives to uplift those in our community by providing free, hot, nutritious meals. This is done by partnering with a variety of local community organizations and establishments with the goal to bring comfort to those in need and to relieve hunger in our area, no matter who they are. Veterans, students, people with disabilities, single parents, senior citizens, working class families, and children. Muslim Serve can be reached by phone at 833-486-4370 or by email at info@muslimserve.org. Learn more about Muslim Serve and what they do on their website, muslimserve.org, and on their social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Muslim Serve.
Khadijah Alderman's Funeral Service Incorporated. Don't let your family bear the burden of your final arrangements. Pre-arranged now.
We specialize in janaza services, traditional Christian services, natural burials, and theme services.
We provide repasts, domestic and international shipping, webcasting, and Skyping.
We service all denominations.
Our new location, 1924 West Hunting Park Avenue, Philadelphia 19140, 215-225-6600. Visit us at www.khadijahsfuneralservice.com. That's www.khadijahsfuneralsvc.com.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Khadijah Alderman's Funeral Service, serving humanity with dignity.
You're listening to Living Islam Today, an Ahmed Media Company project on WURD Radio, 900 AM and 96.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Islam Today. Today is Saturday, January 30th, 2021, and we have our guest, the esteemed Dr. Malik Rahim, who is the voice of black psychology in America today and confronting the rise of neo-racism in America. He is a renowned lecturer and often sought-out speaker on this subject matter, and we're talking about the psychosis of racism, supporting racism, hatred, and white supremacy, and often, or sometimes, not even knowing it. And so we're going to try to get back to our lecture series with the good doctor, and that's a buzzword, series. You know, that means our good friend Dr. Malik, inshallah, will be returning, because we're just not going to be able to tackle this subject in one show. But as you were saying, you know, some people, when their racism is exposed, they have a tendency to explain it as a feeling of frustration more than hatred. And you were talking about that previously in the show. Is there any validity to that explanation?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
When white folk or anybody that they're exposed, their racism is exposed, they have a tendency to say, well, I was just frustrated. I didn't mean it, you know, or I'm economically frustrated, as you talked about as well, when they feel as though they're competing for the same resources, you know, and you only got into the university because of an affirmative action quota, and that bumped me out. So therefore, black people are inferior, and you only get accepted into college because of affirmative action. And then when that's exposed, I was only frustrated, I didn't mean it, you know, that sort of thing. Is that a valid defense?
It depends. It's like I don't want to necessarily generalize over all cases that I don't know. Okay. Because, but usually part of the frustration is because of the jealousy and the hatred that's been instilled in them from the many things of the educational system, because the curriculum in this country creates white supremacy and creates races, and it creates people of African and Latino descent to feel inferior and have internalized oppression and to have imposter syndrome. Okay. So it's like, in order for you to actually come out of that system, it's almost like, and to clear yourself of any hatred and racism, it's like unplugging yourself from the matrix. Right? Because you got to re-educate yourself and have a re-understanding of what is actually going. So you got to, it's just like in Infinity War, right? When they went to nowhere, the planet nowhere, to find Thanos, and when they went there, Gamora went and stabbed him and killed him, and then all of a sudden Thanos came out with his Infinity Gauntlet because he had the Reality Stone, and showed that what she was seeing was a delusion, right? It was a total delusion. He had an illusionary to where the reality was what he wanted to create. And unfortunately, so many of us walk around in this society seeing things that are not really there, right? And the people who are being oppressed see a totally different reality. So when the people stormed the Capitol, a lot of people who participated either in the uprising over the summer with the Black Lives Matter, or any other group you did with the uprising and talking about fighting systemic racism, anti-racism, and they saw that and they was like, they're worse than us, and y'all trying to call that a protest. That's an insurrection. But if you listen to so many of the people who was, I guess you say, smart and brave enough to come on camera, they were describing it as frustration. We're frustrated. They're stealing our country. We want our country back. Stop the steal. We're gonna make sure that our vote is counted, right? That's all fine and good, but the problem came in, all the votes that was considered improper or illegal came from areas with large concentration of people of African descent. So it's like, so it went back to a time in history where we weren't allowed to vote. So it's like, that's kind of what they were kind of saying. The only reason you won was because these people, that's three-fifths of a human, you allowed them and steal this election from us.
So at the crux of it is xenophobia, which is a feeling of group superiority, and economics, a sense of competition for resources, and by sheer numbers, they're taking away our resources through their power of vote.
Right. And so it's like, going back to what I was saying, with Barack Obama being the symbol I would point to, if you look at it at a micro level, it's like when you look at a group dynamic, and you can have like 3 Asians, 3 people of Asian descent, 3 people of African descent, and like 4 people of white descent and 3 people of Latino descent, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the leader of the group is white, there are no issues.
Right. Right. How many times have we seen that?
Everybody, and so the thing about it is they'll say, I get along with everyone, right? I'm not racist. If the person is Asian, that's the leader, they might be a little bit hesitant, but at the same time, because they consider the Asian community the model minority, they won't have much issue. It's when the person becomes of African descent is when you start seeing all the pushback.
Right. That's when Andrew Yang was running for president. He was talking all these numbers and economics. People was listening and sort of taking him serious. Look, we got another caller. We got Penn Mount Airy on line 1. I think that's going to be our last caller. So if you plan on calling, we're running out of time. So Penn and Mount Airy, this is our last caller. You got a question or a comment, Penn?
I'll be brief. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I think this show is excellent, and I wish you would expand with this gentleman and a few others. And I really think WURD, maybe for Black History Month, ought to do a day with one theme. Now, meaning black folks. Now, one thing I noticed that I absolutely agree with your guest, it is Barack Obama. I don't even know how Barack Obama stayed in office for 2 terms. And, I'm not the brightest bulb on the tree, but I'm not stupid. All of this is about Black Lives Matter all over the place. And by the way, the folks who I saw with signs in their windows, they were white and scared, I'm sure. That's why they stuck the sign in their window. But we've got to do better. Like I said, I do think it's a retaliation against Barack Obama. So please answer how he made it through, and what in the world. I do not believe Donald Trump is bright enough. And by the way, I graduated from Penn, as did he, but he's older than me. Thank God I never ran into him. And I never hear Penn, the university, bragging about him. So I'm going to let you go. But try to pick this up as a theme for this next month. Thank you to you and your guests.
Okay. Well,
let me make that perfectly clear. I'm not attacking Barack Obama when I say it started with him.
I don't think, and I don't think he was either.
Right.
So
and another thing
we've run out of time.
Well, let me say this real quick.
First, I'm going to give you your closing comment. Give you your closing comment because I'm going to give it to you. But I also want to get you in on another show. If I can lock you in. I'm not saying what date, next week, anything like that. But will you agree to come back on the show? I've got questions about how racism. Someone texted me a question. How has racism impacted or deconstructed the relationship between black women and black men? And that's, I'm sure, is a subject that's near and dear to you as well. So you're so diverse. But I'm going to give you closing comments. We've got a minute. And so, if you, with that in mind, please, the microphone is yours.
Okay, well, first, let's do that show next. We could do that show next. Just let me know when you want me to come back, and we could do that show next.
Valentine's Day.
What I would say is that racial trauma impacts our communities at an alarming rate. The black and brown communities at an alarming rate. And I would encourage everyone to take it seriously and to please do not feel ashamed to go get counseling. Mental health counseling does not mean that you are crazy. What it means is that you need assistance on sorting out things and working out your stressors. Stress kills.
Right.
Stress kills.
I mean, you go to the doctor once a year to to get your full checkup, you should go see Dr. Rahim to get your mental checkup.
Exactly. But I cannot emphasize enough that our people need to really cleanse ourselves of all this intergenerational and multi-generational trauma that's been ravaging our communities for so long. And hopefully in the next time if I get invited back, I don't know if I'm gonna get invited back, but if I do get invited back, we can address that.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. You've been listening to Living Islam Today, and our esteemed guest, the voice of black psychology on racism in America, Dr. Malik Rahim. He's a professor at Seattle University. He's also been a professor at Central State University, which is an HBCU. Wilberforce, at Wilberforce, which is an HBCU, and at Fresno State. He's gotten around a bit, you know, and so we're looking forward. And we tried to recruit him to Philadelphia, but he ain't want to come. But that's a whole other story. But you've been listening to Islam Today with our esteemed guest, Dr. Malik Rahim. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Thank you for listening to Living Islam Today, Ahmed production. Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.